Hello, hello. It's Carmen here, tuning in today to talk about Krista's favorite product for our designer feature from this month, which is Jungle Gems. Our Jungle Gem glazes are low fire glazes that are designed with little small chunks of crystals in them or glass aggregate that melt in the firing and bloom to create these beautiful color variations that you can see here in our Jungle Gem line. So to get started, a couple base or use facts about our Jungle Gem glazes is that they do have a broad firing range. We've done testing with them from cone 06 all the way up to cone 10. There's obviously some variation with the results here. All of our cone 6 results for the Jungle Gem glazes are on our website, in addition to, of course, our typical low fire 06 results. We have lots of projects and everything on there, so definitely go ahead and check that out. That's an amazing resource, especially since we've got this awesome redesign and update. It's a lot more user-friendly, so definitely check that out there for us. And just to get started, I want to go over how you would use Jungle Gems. So starting out, you're going to have a jar of Jungle Gems here, and inside of that jar you can see that there's these crystals kind of clumped in the bottom. So we're going to want to have that mixed into our jar so that we can actually use this glaze. So I'm going to kind of clear this out a little bit so we can have some working space here, but I can go ahead and go over these glazes here. Here we have all of our brand new Jungle Gem glazes that we released this fall. So these are all super cool, and I'll go ahead and talk about those in a little bit. But first we're going to open our jar. This is a lotus blossom that we have here. I just grabbed one from the shelf, and you'll see there are a couple crystals in here, but you really want to get all of those crystals from the very bottom of the jar mixed all the way in. So what I like to do is use just the back of my brush because that's what I usually have available. And I'll start mixing it. And you're going to hear that brush scraping against all those crystals in the bottom of your jar. So give it a good mix. And then once you've mixed it, I want to also shake it up. So we're going to mix it so that we are breaking up those crystals that are in the very bottom of the jar, but that's not going to distribute them throughout the whole entire jar. So I'm just going to go ahead and give it a good shake here. And I'll check the bottom. Looks a lot more clear. It's kind of hard to see with these jars. They're not all the way clear, but you can kind of see that there's a darker concentration. So here we have our crystal glaze, and you can see the crystals distributed throughout the glaze here. You want to have those chunks in there. They're definitely not bad. That is where all of the magic happens here. So when you're using our Jungle Gem glazes, or really any crystal glaze, it actually can be really, really helpful to pour it out onto a plate. And this makes the crystals more accessible because depending on what glaze you're using, some glazes, the crystals are going to sink down really, really quickly after you mix it up. So just pouring it out onto a plate is really, really helpful to make those crystals more accessible. So you can see here it's really easy to see where the crystals are, which will make it a lot easier for distributing your crystals. So we're going to just go ahead and apply a coat here. This is a very nicely loaded fan brush, I might add. This is kind of how I like to use my fan brushes, really having them loaded up all the way with the glaze and then just kind of icing the surface a little bit. So I just kind of scoop the glaze up and then spread it around on the surface here. And that way I know that I'm not ending up with any glaze starvation, and this really actually helps me ensure a nice dispersion of the crystals here. So there's one nice good coat. One thing to keep in mind when you are applying the crystal glazes is sometimes the glaze will tend to pool around the crystals themselves. So sometimes it's good to make sure you brush that out to make sure you have really even and consistent coverage. So that's just one coat. With our crystal glazes we do, or our jungle gem glazes, we do recommend applying 3 coats. So I would let this dry until the shine was all the way gone. You see how wet that is? So once the shine is all the way gone, then that's when I know I can go ahead and put my next coat on. So I'm just going to set this aside for now and then kind of just go over the basics with our jungle gem glazes. So as I said previously, these 4 are glazes that we released this fall. These are the new colors. Here they are at low fire. Super cool. I think this here, I guess we have jazz notes here, pink pixie here, and then this was Mardi Gras and Go Iris. I didn't know if I was going to remember the names, but I did, so that's what those are. They're super awesome. I did want to showcase these glazes at mid-range as well, because I did mention that they do go up to cone 6, and this will be a really good example kind of showcasing how these glazes change at cone 6. So here I have a mug that I posted previously on Mayco Mudroom, but this has jazz notes on it. So here is its comparable, the same product at 06 and cone 6. So you can kind of see here, and this is something that you kind of can anticipate with all of our jungle gem glazes, is that these crystals are going to fade and they're going to disperse a little bit. And sometimes the base glaze fades a little bit, but if you don't have any samples or you don't have access to the page on the internet or on our website that showcases these at cone 6, but you do know what it looks like at 06, I would just expect there to be movement and fading with the crystals. So that's very apparent in this glaze here. And then I do have another sample of the Go Iris. So here we have this, and you can see these crystals held up a little bit better than the other crystals, which is kind of expected because the other Jazz Notes glaze that had a purple crystal in it, which is definitely going to fade at mid-range. Purples and reds and things like that, and pinks, those will fade out really easily, so that's definitely something to keep in mind. So this, we're layering it, on both of these we layer them with the stonework glaze, but then we have the plain glaze on the bottom. So this is kind of like an overlapping blending area for these. I do really like to layer the jungle gem glazes with stoneware glazes at cone 6. That makes them a little bit less volatile and a little bit more reliable. So because you're layering it with a stoneware glaze that you know how it's going to behave, you're just adding some movement and a bit of variation with other glazes. So here we have, so this is Pink Pixie, this glaze here, over top of one of our ice glazes. This is over chambray. And so you can see it's layering over top of it. The pink kind of faded out a little bit. The purple faded out a little bit, but it does add some beautiful movement and flow to the piece here. And it goes really well with this chambray color. So you can kind of see and anticipate the movement and variation that's typical of our jungle gem glazes at cone 6 here. And then we also have, this is the Mardi Gras. So on Mardi Gras, a lot of the yellow faded, but you can still see it's showcased a little bit. It's holding up a little bit, but then the blue holds strong, and the purple is mostly fading away here. I like to layer the jungle gems with stoneware glazes just to add a little bit of movement. So I do have one more sample here showing about stoneware, and then I'll showcase you guys a couple samples of low fire that kind of has a stoneware aesthetic. So here we have Herb Garden. This is at Cone 6 on just like a handmade piece layered with oyster. So the herb garden is just on the top area and then the oyster is down here. The oyster I used as like kind of a buffer area because I knew that this was going to move a lot, but I did not want to have this be unglazed all the way up here. This is a really, really good way to use these at Cone 6, especially the ones that are going to move a lot. So I'll glaze the herb garden down to here and then have the oyster kind of overlapping it a little bit. So even if the herb garden didn't flow all the way down to the bottom, I wouldn't end up with like a bare glazed area or anything like that. So that's definitely a good way to use jungle gems and experiment a little bit. I know if you guys aren't familiar with Feng Shu, he uses a lot of our jungle gem glazes and does an insane amount of test tiles, and he's honestly a really, really great resource and is really, really public about all of the tiles and everything that he does, and he's very, very responsive and super, super supportive. So definitely check out his work. It's amazing, and he is like the jungle gem king. Like, he's done extensive work with jungle gems at Cone 6. So if you do Cone 6 and you are wanting to look at jungle gems, I did forget to showcase this here. This is the herb garden at O6 and this is the herb garden at Cone 6. So again, like I had said previously, you can expect the crystals to melt and move a little bit. These crystals hold up pretty well. It's kind of funny, the brown from this green crystal is what remains, and then the rest of it kind of dissipates into the background glaze, which I think is really, really cool. This is honestly one of my favorite glazes to use at this temperature. So then another awesome thing with the jungle gems is that you can get this great stoneware look, but at low fire. So if you're using a community kiln or you just don't work with mid-range clay, you can use the jungle gems with our element glazes to create this awesome kind of like stoneware feel, but still at low fire temperatures. So our element glazes are great, they break over texture, and then layering these two things together is going to add a lot of movement. And this actually has the benefit of these crystals not firing out, so the colors are going to remain very, very vibrant when you're doing it, layering it with other jungle gems or other element glazes. And that's going to help move them a lot. You can also actually layer them with our stroke and coat glazes. It's kind of cool if you layer a jungle gem underneath the stroke and coat. All these crystals will pop through your stroke and coat, but it's going to cover or maybe merge with the base color a little bit. So if you maybe think that this would look better with like a purple as the base, I think that layering this and then putting a purple stroke and coat on top of it would be a really, really good way to bring some purple into here, but still get these beautiful crystal blooms that happen. I would anticipate the base glaze to mix with the purple a little bit, so you're not going to get like a true grapple or stroke and coat color necessarily, but I think that's the fun thing about experimenting with these glazes. And then as most of our stoneware crystal glazes, we do have all of the base glazes listed for those. Unfortunately, our jungle gem glazes, we don't have base glaze formulations. It's not the same as our stoneware glazes. Some of them we did take from our foundations or stroke and coat line, but most of these have special formulations for the base glaze, and it's not a glaze that we sell in any of our other lines. So unfortunately, with the jungle gem glazes, you can't buy the base glaze and then mix it in or layer it with the base glaze to have less crystals, but you definitely can do color matching. So this glaze, you know, the base glaze is a bright yellow. I would layer it perhaps with some sun-kissed, which is also a bright yellow, if I wanted to cut down on the crystal content. So maybe 2 coats of sun-kissed, 1 coat of the Mardi Gras glaze, and then I would have a nice, more dispersed crystal effect, but still getting that beautiful, vibrant base glaze and not cutting it down or anything like that. I have recently had some questions about applying our jungle gem glazes to greenware. And with that, that's like a little bit more finicky than, say, our stroke and coat glazes. So our stroke and coat glazes, we recommend you can apply it to greenware, just leave space for outgassing. Since all of the base glazes for our jungle gems are a little bit different, some have more translucency, some are really, really opaque, some are going to have movement, some are going to be really sturdy. So those things are going to affect your fired results. So we can apply the jungle gem glazes to greenware, allowing outgassing, but you do want to do some test trials because each glaze is going to perform a little bit differently. So I don't think that we can just like blanket statements say, put all the jungle gems on greenware and you're fine. I would definitely recommend testing, as with anything, even things that we're recommending, I still recommend testing because everyone is applying glaze differently. Everybody is using a different kiln, different clay bodies and things like that. So that's something to always keep in mind when you see pictures that you like on the internet, that you do need to take a bit of agency in it and really, really utilize these glazes in your own personal practice. And then one last thing that I wanted to go over with our jungle gems is reseeding your glaze coats. So if you don't know what reseeding your coats are, this is really like super important on stoneware applications of jungle gems, but it also can be important on low fire applications of jungle gems as well, depending on how you're layering them. Like so this here, they just skipped the reseeding the coats. It's like, let's play it safe and have a buffer glaze and only glaze the top section of this piece. That's usually what I recommend doing when you're doing stoneware, just to save your shelves, or you can be really, really vigilant and taking care of your kiln and set your stoneware pieces on cookies, or use a kiln brick is usually what we use because it comes off really easily and you can grind it off, or something to raise this up so that if it does flow over, that you're not ending up with it on your shelf. But aside from having like a buffer glaze, you could also reseed your coats. So anticipating the movement is kind of something that I like to keep in mind. So let's say this is what I want to apply my glaze to, but I do want this glaze to be all the way at the bottom. I don't want this globby area or this buffer area. So if I'm going to be doing that, I'm going to take my first coat all the way down to the bottom, just one coat. And because these glazes do have a lot of movement, I'm going to anticipate that with how much I'm reseeding my coats. So I'm going to reseed these coats a lot because these glazes move a lot. So I'm going to bring my second coat only up to here, anticipating that it's going to flow down a little bit more, kind of meeting here. So I'm going to bring my second coat up an inch, maybe 2 inches even, and then my third coat, I'll bring that almost down halfway. So I'm leaving this much space receding from, so 1 coat, 2 coats, 3 coats. So that's what I would do at cone 6 because these glazes are so very fluid. At low fire, you definitely don't have to do that. You could just go down to here and then a little bit more and a little bit more. And that's just if you're layering and anticipating movement. At 06, you're going to be stilting your pieces anyway, so you do have a little bit more forgiveness than when you're doing cone 6 and you only have like this much space to work with here. So definitely something to keep in mind when you're using our jungle gem glazes at mid-range and even at low fire, depending on your application technique. So here we are back at this tile that I glazed earlier. It's getting nice and dry here, so I'm going to go ahead and put my second coat on. I'm going to put some more glaze on my plate here. Again, shaking up my jar to distribute the crystals and pouring them out onto this plate here so that I can ensure I'm getting enough crystals applied and I can kind of plan where I'm applying them. So just scooping that glaze up and spreading it around like icing. So I'm obviously a very heavy glazer. I have really found that more glaze is usually better. I save myself with that using the kiln bricks to save the kiln. But generally I don't run into like way too many problems with it. If I'm anticipating movement, I'll do those things I said earlier, like reseating your coats or adding a buffer space or buffer glaze in order to stop anything from getting stuck on the kiln. So I'm really big on more is better when it comes to glazing. I just think it adds a lot of beautiful dynamic variation with all of our glazes. Maybe not the stroke and coats, because there's no variation in those. But our elements glazes, our jungle gem glazes, and our stoneware glazes especially. So you can see here, this is on nice, super thick. And now I'm going to use this time to kind of spread my crystals out a little bit more evenly. So I have as much glaze as I want on there. I can see it's very saturated. And then I'm just going to go ahead and spread these guys out. So that is a nice even application here. If you're applying it like this, honestly, you probably could get away with 2 coats. I'm probably just going to go ahead and apply 3 coats because I like a lot of glaze. So you can see that there. Looks great. And yeah, so I guess that's all that I had down here for talking about our jungle gem glazes. If you guys think of any questions about jungle gems while you're watching this, or if you're tuning in after our Facebook Live event, please drop your questions in the comments. I would absolutely love to answer them. I love helping you guys and being available to make sure that you have the most understanding of our products so that you can utilize them for what you need them for. So yeah, so please feel free to drop any comments or questions down so that I can answer them later. And definitely be sure to check out our website for all of our crystals and everything like that. So yeah, I hope you guys have a great day. Bye.